All right, so 4.6a, we're talking about what we call complex numbers. So complex numbers, the imaginary unit is the square root of a negative number. Therefore, I is the square root of negative 1. So anytime you see a negative under the square root sign, you're going to it's going to come out front as a 1. As an I. So we can look at this as negative 1 as the square root. We can split this up as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. The square root of negative 1 is I, and the square root of 4 is 2. And so your answer is 2I. Same thing here. I could keep it underneath and do negative 1 times 5. Again, that negative 1 comes outside as an I, and then 5 doesn't break down. And so it's just I square root of 5. Over here, square root of negative 1, square root of 8. I think it looks better that way. That's just going to break it down as an I. 8 is 4 times 2, and then 2 times 2 times 2. So we have a pair of 2's, and so that gives me 2 square root of 2. And so then you bring the I and the 2 together, and so the whole answer is 2I square root of 2. Number 9, again, square root of negative 1, square root of 9. That is I. Square root of 9 is 3, because it's a perfect square, so it's just 3I. Square root of negative 3. 3 doesn't break down, and the negative just comes out as an I. Okay, I have a negative, so I know there's going to be an I, and then we can just break down the 12. 4 times 3, and 2 times 2 times 3. So it's 2I square root of 3. That negative has to be accounted for in the form of the I, the imaginary unit. Okay? So there's something that we have called a complex number. And your complex number is written in this form. You need to remember this. A plus BI. The A is the real part, and the BI is the imaginary part, because it has your I. You always want to, in standard form, that is what that is. You always want to put your answers in standard form, and the real part goes first, always. Okay? All right, so for example 2, we are just going to, it's adding, so we're just going to do 8 minus I plus 5 plus 4I. That's really it. Combine your like terms. Do the real part first. 8 plus 5 is 13. Negative 1 plus 4 is a positive 3I. Over here, it is subtraction, so you need to distribute. That gives you negative 3 and a positive 6I. Then you can drop down your 7 minus 6I from the first parentheses. Do your real part first. 7 minus 3 is 4. Negative 6 and 6 cancel out. So your answer is just 4. Same thing here. You want to distribute that negative first. So it's 10 minus 6 minus 7i, and then the plus 4i. Do your real part, and then do your imaginary. Again, you always want the real, and then plus or minus the imaginary. All right. I is equal to the square root of negative 1, which is what we've learned. Therefore, I squared, square root of negative 1 squared. Well, we learned yesterday that a square root and a square root times a square root cancel out. And so the square root, or I squared, is just negative 1. I squared equals negative 1. You're going to want to remember that. Therefore, we never leave an I squared in an answer because you now know that I squared is really just negative 1. You can leave an I, but not an I squared. All right, so down here, distribute your 4i. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24i. 4i times I is a positive 4i squared. Again, we now know that I squared is really just negative 1. So that is negative 24 plus 4 times negative 1. Negative 24i minus 4. And then we always rewrite it with our real part first. So negative 4 minus 24i should be your answer. You need to write it with the real number first. Same thing here. We're going to distribute, double distribute. So 9 times negative 9 times 4 is negative 36. 9 times 7 is positive 63i. And do it again. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8i. And negative 2 times positive 7, negative 2i times positive 7 is negative 14i squared. That is really negative 1. You can combine your like terms. So I have negative 36. 63 plus 8 is 71 minus 14 times negative 1. Again, the I squared turned into a negative 1, which is going to change the sign of my 14, and then I can combine those like terms. Negative 36 plus 14 is a negative 22, and then bring down your 71i. It should always be real imaginary. Okay, so your assignment is in your book. Your assignment is on page 279. Make sure you number it, label it as complex numbers, 4.6a, and we are doing 12 through 20 even, and 21 that doesn't make sense. Let me see what through 27 all. It says 17 on the front of your packet, so it's be a 27. All right, we will check those, and we will check our simplifying expressions, or simplifying radicals, this worksheet. We will check that tomorrow. Okay.